morning everyone. My name is Guimbaleña, and for today I will discuss the chapter 7, which is the law regulating transportation establishment. From the time the wheel was invented, man began to travel and explore different corners of the world. In modern times, with the inventions of the first flying machine and marine vessel, tourism started to grow at a fast pace. Transportation as a business careers with it not only high returns but great responsibility for many lives are stake in. Learning objectives. Identify the law affecting the transportation sector. Identify the rights of passengers of commercial transportation and explain the relevance of these laws to the promotions of tourism and the country. Topic outline. Law on common carriers. Nature of contract of carriage. Responsibility of common carriers. Liabilities of common carriers for the acts of employees and strangers. Registrations of aircraft. Authority to operate. Regulations of the land transportation. Accreditations of transportation vehicles laid the Department of Tourism, standard requirements for tourist and transport vehicles, standard requirements for tourist water transportation vessels, accreditations of motorized boat o bangka engaged in tourism activities and services, seatbelt law, law on transportations of animals, law on transporter and importation of vehicles, public scenic law, right of way, parking prohibition, driving or parking on sidewalk, driving and substance intake, observation of traffic, duty or driver during an accident, law regulating tricycles, pedicabs, kalasas, and other related provision under the Local Government Code of 1991, Limited Access Highway Act RA 2000, June 22, 1957, as amended by Executive Order 546, and last, accreditations of kalasa drivers. Law on common carriers. The primary law that governs common carriers in the Civil Code of the Philippines, as clearly implied from Article 1766 thereof, which states that in all matters not regulated by this code, the rights and obligations of common carriers shall be governed by the Code of Commerce and special laws. So, the law means that applies to common carriers such as transportation companies for passengers or goods. In the Civil Code of the Philippines, specifically Article 1766. However, there are issues or situations that the Civil Code does not cover. Then the rule from the Code of Commerce and other special law will be used to decide the rights and responsibilities of the common carriers. Article 1732. Common carriers are persons, corporations, firms, or associations engaged in the businesses of carrying or transporting passengers or goods or both by land, water, or air for compensation, offering their services to the public. Of contract of carriage. A contract to transport passengers in quite different in kind and degree from any other contractual relations, and this is because of the relation which an air carrier sustains with the public. It invites people to avail the comforts of advantages. It offers the contract of carriage, therefore generates a relations attended with the public duty. Neglect or manifestance of the carrier's employees naturally could give ground for an actions for damages. So, a contract of carriage is a legal agreement between a transportation company or carrier and a passenger or shipper. In this agreement, the carrier promises to safely transport the passenger or goods to their destinations in exchange for payment. In this type of contract is special because it involves a public duty. where the carrier provides services to the public, so they must ensure safety, comfort, and proper care for passengers or goods. And also, it high standard of responsibility that carriers are legally responsible if something goes wrong during the transportation due to their employees' mistakes or negligence. So it says that if an airline or its employees fail in their duty, for example through negligence, misconduct, or poor service, the passenger can sue for damages or compensations for harm or loss. Next is responsibility of common carriers. In Article 1733, common carriers, from the nature of their businesses and for reasons of public policy, are bound to observe extraordinary diligence in the vigilance over the goods and for the safety of the passengers transported by them, according to all the circumstances of each case. So in Article 1733, common carriers have a special responsibility because they serve the public. The law requires them to use extraordinary diligence, meaning they must take every possible precaution to protect passengers and goods. The level of care depends on the specific situation, but it must always be higher than ordinary care. Article 1755, a common carrier is bound to carry the passengers safely as far as human care and foresight can provide, using the utmost diligence of very cautious person with due regard for all the circumstances. So in Article 1755, common carriers must ensure passenger safety with the highest level of care and caution. This is known as utmost diligence, which means that they should act with extreme caution, even beyond normal safety standards. In Article 1756, in case of death of or injuries to passengers, common carriers are presumed to have been at fault or to have acted negligently unless they prove that they observe extraordinary diligence as prescribed in Articles 1733 and 1755. In Article 1756, if a passenger is injured or killed, the law automatically assumes the carrier is at fault. This is called presumptions of negligence. The only way for the carrier to avoid liability is to prove that they exercise extraordinary diligence as required in Article 1733 and 1755. Next is in Article 1757, the responsibility of a common carrier for the safety of passengers as required in Articles 1733 and 1755 cannot be dispensed with or lessened by stipulations by the posting of notices, by statements or on tickets or otherwise. In Article 1757, carrier cannot escape the responsibility by making passengers sign agreements, posting disclaimers, or adding conditions on tickets. The duty to ensure passenger safety cannot be lessened or waived. Discussions of the law. As soon as the passenger puts his foot on the platform, the obligations of extraordinary diligence of the common carrier begins. The relations of carrier and passenger does not cease at the moment of passenger alights from the carrier's vehicle at the place selected by the carrier at the point of destinations, but continues until the passenger has had a reasonable time or a reasonable opportunity to leave the carrier's premises. A certificate of public convenience is not a requirement in order for a common carrier to incur liability. Such liability arises from the moment a person or firm acts as a common carrier without regard to whether or not such carrier has been granted the certificate of public convenience or has complied the requirements of the applicable implementing regulations. The term extraordinary diligence has been defined as the standard of care required of common carrier in the bringing safely its passengers and goods from one place to another. In a contract of carriage or passengers, it is obligations of the common carrier to bring the passengers safely to the point of destinations. If injury or death occurs, the presumption of negligence automatically arises, and the common carrier can be held liable if he fails to prove extraordinary diligence for the durations of the carriage. Article 1755 of the Civil Code provides that a common carrier is bound to carry the passengers as far as human care and foresight can provide, using the utmost diligence of vericution's person with due regard for all the circumstances. Thus, for failure to use utmost diligence for a vericution's person, the bus company should be held liable. Article 1755 states that a common carrier such as a bus company, airline, or shipping line has a legal duty to transport passengers safely. To do this, they must exercise the highest level of care and caution possible called utmost diligence, which means using every reasonable precaution to avoid harm, ensure safety measures are in place, and anticipating and preventing potential dangers. This level of care is higher than what is expected in normal situations. It requires the courier to act as a very cautious person would, considering all risks and circumstances. Next is the liabilities of common couriers for the acts of employees and strangers. In Article 1759, common couriers are liable for the death or injuries to passengers through the negligence or willful acts of the former's employees, although such employees may have acted beyond the scope of their authority or in violations of the orders of the common carriers. So in Article 1759 of the Civil Code states that common couriers are responsible for passenger injuries or death caused by their employees, even if the employees acted negligently or carelessly or intentionally on purpose. The employee acted outside their job duties or beyond their authority, and the employee disobeyed company rules or orders. This rule is based on the principle of liability, meaning that employers are responsible for their employees' actions while on duty. This liability of the common couriers does not cease upon proof that they exercise the diligence of a good father of a family in the selections and supervisions of their employees. Next is the registrations of aircraft. The law. Only aircraft owned by or leased to a citizen or citizens of the Philippines and which are not registered under the laws of any foreign country may eligible for registration. Regulations of the shipping industry. The Maritime Industry Authority or Marina was created on June 1, 1974 with the issuance of Presidential Decree number 474 to integrate the development, promotions, and regulations of the maritime industry in the country. It was originally placed under the office of the President with the creations of the Ministry or now Departments of Transportations and the Communications by virtue of Executive Order number 546. The Marina was attached to the DOTC for policy and program coordination on July 23, 1979. By virtue of Public Act number 9295 on May 3, 2004, Marina has the following functions. First, register vessels. Second, issue certificates of public convenience or any extensions or amendments thereto authorizing the operations of all kinds, classes, and types of vessels in domestic shipping, provided that no such certificate shall be valid for a period more than 25 years. Third, modify, suspend, or revoke at any time upon notice and hearing any certificate, license, or accreditations it may have issued to any domestic ship operator. Fourth, establish and prescribe routes, zones, or areas of operations of domestic operators. Fifth, requires any domestic ship operator to provide shipping services to any coastal area, island, or region in the country where such services are necessary for the development of the area to meet emergency sea left requirements or when public interest so requires. 6. Set safety standards for vessels in accordance with applicable conventions and regulations. 7. Require all domestic ship operators to comply with operational and safety standards for vessels set by applicable conventions and regulations, maintain its vessels in safe and serviceable conditions, meet the standards of safety of life and sea and safe manning requirements, and furnish safe, adequate, efficient, reliable, and proper services at all times. 8. Inspect all vessels to ensure the enforced compliance with safety standards and other regulations. 9. Ensure all domestic ship operator shall have the financial capacity to provide and sustain safe, reliable, efficient, and economic passenger or cargo services or both. 10. Determine the impact which any new services shall have to the locality it will serve. 11. Adopt and enforce such rules and regulations which will ensure compliance by every domestic ship operator with required safety standards and other rules and regulations on vessel safety. 12. Adopt such rules and regulations which ensure the reasonable stability of passengers and right rates and if necessary to intervene in order to protect public interest. 13. Hear and adjudicate any complaint made in writing involving any violations of this law or the rules and regulations of the Marina. 14. Impose such fines and penalties on including the revocations of license of any domestic ship operator who shall fail to maintain its vessels in safe and serviceable condition or who shall violate or fail to comply with safety regulations. 15. Investigate and complaint made in writing against any domestic ship operator or any shipper or any group of shippers regarding any matter involving violations of the provisions of this Act. 16. Upon notice and hearing impose such fines, suspend or revoke certificates of public convenience or other license issued or otherwise penalize any ship operator, shipper, or group of shippers found violating the provisions of this Act. And 17. Issue such rules and regulations necessary to implement the provisions of this Act provided that such rules and regulations can change or any way amended in contrary to the intent and proposed this Act. Next is the authority to operate. Franchise, certificate, or any other form authorization awarded by Marina for the carriage of cargo or passenger or both in domestic trade shall be granted except to domestic ship owners or operators. The term domestic ship owner or operator means citizens of the Philippines or a commercial partnership wholly owned by Filipinos or corporations at least 60% of the capital of which is owned by Filipinos, which is duly authorized by the Maritime Industry Authority or Marina to engage in the business of domestic shipping. 47. However, foreign vessels who may wish to engage in trade and commerce within Philippine territorial waters may be granted a special permit by the Marina when no domestic vessels are available or suitable to provide the needed shipping service and where public interest warrants the same. So, in authority to operate, this law sets the rules of who can legally operate ships for cargo or passenger transport within the Philippines is highlight two main points. First is only Filipino-owned companies can operate domestic shipping. So this Maritime Industry Authority or Marina issues franchises, certificates, or permits to operate domestic shipping. However, these permits are granted only to Filipino citizens (OOR), companies that are at least 60% Filipino-owned, and partnerships of corporations fully owned by Filipinos. Second, exception for foreign vessels or special permits. Foreign vessels may be allowed to operate within Philippine waters but only under special conditions, like no suitable Filipino-owned vessels is available for the service needed. The service is necessary for the public interest like during emergencies or natural disaster. And Marina must issue a special permit for the foreign vessels to operate. Next is regulations of the land transportation. The concept of land transportation system in the Philippines started when our ancestors invented means of locomotion. The early means of transportation used were animals in moving people and goods from place to place. Although the means of land transportation during the early days were not as sophisticated as the modern vehicles of today and the roads were not as well constructed. The early Filipinos also observed some forms of law to govern their mobility. These laws were as informal and simple as specifying which animal could be used for certain purposes. However, the existence of these rules show that our ancestors had already felt the need to regulate the transportation system. Today, it is the Land Transportation Office or LTO and the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board or LTFRB, which are the agencies involved in the regulations of the land transportation industry. The LTO is the proper agency which controls the registrations and operations of motor vehicles and the licensing of owners, dealers, conductors, drivers, and similar matters. Under the Clean Air Act of 1999, vehicles must pass the emissions testing requirements to be administered by the Department of Transportation and Communications as the prerequisite for registration. On the other hand, the functions of the LTFRB are as follows: to prescribe and regulate routes of service, economically viable capacities and zones on areas of operations of public land transportation services provided by motorized vehicles in accordance with the public land transportation development plans and programs approved by the Department of Transportation and Communications. To issue, amend, revise, suspend, or cancel certificates of public convenience or permits authorizing the operations of public land transportation services provided by the motorized vehicles, and to prescribe the appropriate terms and conditions therefore, to determine, prescribe, and approve the periodically review and adjust reasonable fares, rates, and other release charges relative to the operations of public land transportation services provided by the motorized vehicles. Last is to issue preliminary or permanent injunctions, whether prohibitory or mandatory, in all cases in which it has jurisdiction, and in which cases the pertinent provisions of the rules of court shall apply. To punish and contempt of the board, both direct and indirect, in accordance with the pertinent provisions of and the pertinent prescribed by the rules of court. Issue subpoena and subpoena dues tecum and summon witnesses to appear in any proceedings of the board, to administer oaths and affirmations, to conduct investigations and hearings of compliance for violations of the public service law and land transportations, and of the board's rules and regulations, orders, decisions, and or rulings, and to impose fines and or penalties for such violations. To review motu proprio the decisions or actions of the Regional Franchising and Regulatory Office herein created, to promulgate rules and regulations governing proceedings before the Board of the Regional Franchising and Regulatory Office. Provide that, except with respect to paragraphs D, E, F, and G hereof, the rules of procedures and evidence prevailing in the courts of law should not be controlling, and it is the spirit and intentions of said rules that the Board of the Regional Franchising and Regulatory Offices shall use every and all reasonable means to ascertain facts in its case speedily and objectively, and without regard to the technicalities of law and procedures, in the interests of due processes. Next is to fix, impose, and collect, periodically review, and adjust reasonable fees and other related charges for services rendered. Formulate, promulgate, administer, implement, and enforce rules and regulations on land transportation, public utilities, standards of measurements and or design, and rules and regulations requiring operators of any public transportation services to equip, install, and provide in their utilities and their stations such devices, equipment, facilities, and operating procedures and techniques as may promote safety, protections, comfort, and convenience to persons and property in their charges, as well as the safety of persons and property with their areas of operations. To coordinate and cooperate with other government agencies and entities concerned with any aspect involving public and transportation services, with the end in view affecting continuing improvement of such services, and to perform such other functions and duties as may be provided by law, or as may be necessary or proper to incidental to the purposes and objectives of this executive order. Next is accreditation of transportation vehicles by the Department of Tourism. This involves that the minimum requirements for the operations, establish, and maintenance of transportation vehicles in order to accredited by the Department of Tourism. Accreditation by the Department of Tourism, although not mandatory in nature, increases the marketability of the transportation vehicle. So, accreditation refers to the certification given by the Department of Tourism or DOT to transportation services providers that meet certain quality and safety standards. Next is standard requirements for tourist land transportation vehicles. To be registrable, every tourist transport must be found roadworthy upon inspections by a team from the Departments of Tourism. In the case of bus or coaster, it shall not be more than 10 years recalled from the year of manufacture. For tourist car, it shall not be more than 5 years recalled from the year of manufacture, provided, however, that tourist luxury car shall have a maximum allowable age of 10 years. For this purpose, luxury cars shall refer to the passenger cars with engine displacement or not less than 2,190 cc and which are not locally assembled or manufactured. Every tourist transport shall be provided with a left-hand drive. It shall be properly equipped and adequate air conditioning units, and it shall be provided or installed with at least one portable fire extinguisher for the protections of its passenger. Standard requirements for tourist land transport vehicles ensure that vehicles used for tourism are safe, comfortable, and meet regulatory standards. These regulations are meant to guarantee both safety and comfort of tourists, ensuring that the vehicles are in good condition, well-maintained, and equipped with the necessary safety tools. Next is standard requirements for tourist water transport vessels. There should be at least one restroom each with toilet and washing facilities for male and female located at the passenger accommodation area. In addition, there should be a common toilet and bath at the cabin area for long-haul trip. Tissue paper, receptionist should be available to user in guest. There should be a refreshment area which should be well stocked at all times in case of long-haul trips, a dining area capable of seating at least one-fourth of the total passengers, and one serving should be provided with appropriate and well-maintained furniture. There should be a promenade or airing space at the upper deck for the exclusive use of passengers. There should be a baggage area provided with racks or similar convenient and safe storage in the passenger accommodations area. So in these standard requirements for tourist water transport vessel, ensure passenger comfort, convenience, and safety during their journey. Each vessel must have at least one restroom with toilet and washing facilities designated for male and female passengers within the passenger accommodation area. For long-haul trips, an additional common toilet and bath must be available in the cabin area with essential amenities such as tissues, paper, soap, and hand or paper towels provided. To assist passenger, a receptionist should be present to welcome and guide guests. The vessel must also feature a well-stocked refreshment area to cater to passengers' needs throughout the trip. On long-haul journeys, a dedicated dining area must be available with enough seating to accommodate at least one-fourth of the total passengers per serving, furnished with appropriate and well-maintained tables and chairs. Additionally, passengers should have access to a promenade or airing space on the upper deck, providing an open area for relaxation and sightseeing. For the secure storage of belongings, a designated baggage area equipped with racks or other safe storage facilities must be provided with the passenger accommodations area. These standards aim to ensure a comfortable, enjoyable, and safe experience for all passengers aboard tourist water transport vessels. Land transport, a copy of the LTFRB certificate of franchise or authorizations for tourist car or bus service. Copy of the transportation rates as approved by the LTFRB. Pictures of the vehicles showing the side, back and front views thereof with the company's name and logo imprinted on its rear and sides respectively. Such other papers or documents as may be required from time to time by the department. For water transport, a copy of a certificate of public convenience, a necessity issued by the Maritime Industry Authority. A copy of the transportation rates as approved by the Maritime Industry Authority. Pictures of the vessel showing the side, back, and front view thereof with the company's name and logo imprinted on its sides. A copy of routes to be served and schedules. Such other papers or documents as may be required from time to time by the department. For the air transport, a copy of a certificate of public convenience, a necessity issued by the Civil Aeronautics Board. A copy of transportation rates as approved by the Civil Aeronautics Board. Pictures of the plane showing the side, back, and front views thereof with the company's name and or logo imprinted on its sides. List of operations and maintenance officials and personnel with their ATO licenses. Copy of the routes to be served and flight schedules and such other papers or documents as may be required from time to time by the department. Accreditation of motorized boat or bangka engaged in tourism activities and services. A motorized boat or bangka engaged in tourist services shall mean a vessel of 20 gross tonnage or GRT and below engaged in providing water transport services, including sightseeing and water-related tourism activities to foreign or domestic tourists for free or any form of compensation. For purposes of accreditation, the boat or bangka should be made for good quality materials and in accordance with marina standards. The quality for accreditation, the boat or bangka must be constructed using high quality materials and meet the standards set by the Maritime Industry Authority or Marina, the governing body responsible for regulating maritime vessels. These standards are designed to ensure that the vessels are seaworthy, safe, and suitable for tourism operations. Meeting these accreditation requirements helps promote and safety and satisfactions of tourists while maintaining the overall quality of tourism services. Adequate lighting, flashlights, and radio equipment shall be provided. The boat or bangka should be provided with adequate waste bin, and there should be a short briefing on both rules on safe travel, proper waste disposal, and other concerns before boarding, or an adequate notice thereof, or brochures should be conspicuously displayed on the motorized boat or bangka are given to passengers. The boat or bangka should be manned by at least 2 boatmen who are well trained, efficient, and courteous, and with proper work permit or license for marina. The boatman should wear identification cards and clean uniform prescribed by the Departments of Tourism at all times, and should provide optimum service geared on passenger safety, comfort, and convenience. Following may apply for accreditations as operator or motorized boat bangka engaged in tourism activities and services. First is single proprietorship owned by the resident Filipino citizen. Second, a partnership organized under the laws of the Philippines, at least 60% of its capital being owned by the Filipino citizens. And third, a corporation organized under the laws of the Philippines, at least 60% of the subscribed common or voting shares of stocks of which is owned by the Filipino citizens and the compensations, or its board of directors being at least 60% Filipinos. Applications for accreditation should be accompanied by the following documents. In the case of single proprietorship, a business name certificate and all amendments thereto duly registered with the Bureau of Trade, Regulations, and Consumer Authentications, Department of Trade and Industry. In the case of cooperations or partnership, a certified copy of the articles of incorporations or partnership and its bylaws and amendments thereto duly registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Next is mayor's permit and or municipal license. Next, resolutions of the board of directors authorizing the filing of application and designated the person authorized single and act for on its behalf and transact business with the department. If single proprietorship or partnership, a letter of authority from the owner or partners. Next is complete list of the officers and employees indicating therein the nationality, home, address, and position, certified correct under by the general manager or president. Next, the marina documents. Copy of marina certificate of inspection, which validity shall not be less than 3 months from the date of filing of applications with the department, and valid certificate of public convenience or CPC, or provisional authority or PA, special permit or SP. Next is valid copy of the compulsory passenger insurance with the appropriate coverage for each passenger. Next is copy of rates and routes to be served and schedules. And last is such other documents and the department may require from the time to time. Next is seatbelt law. A seatbelt law was enacted to secure and safeguard its citizenry, particularly the passengers and drivers of private and public motor vehicles, from the ruinous and extremely injurious effects of vehicular accidents. In order to secure the safety of the passengers and drivers at all times, the mandatory enforcement of the use of seatbelt devices by the drivers and front seat passengers of private and public motor vehicles shall be enforced. So this law requires the mandatory use of seatbelt devices to enhance safety and reduce the risk of injuries during collisions. Under the law, drivers and front seat passengers must wear seatbelts at all times while the vehicle is in motion. The enforcement of this rule aims to promote road safety and minimize the impact of accidents, ensuring that drivers and passengers are better protected from harm. By making seatbelt use compulsory, the law seeks to reduce traffic-related injuries and fatalities, emphasizing the importance of the safety and responsible driving behavior. Discussion of the law. The highlights of the law are as follows. First, the driver and front seater passengers of a public vehicles are required to wear or use their seatbelt devices while inside a vehicle of running engine on any road or thoroughfare. In addition, the driver of a public motor vehicle shall be required to immediately inform and require the front seat passengers upon boarding a vehicle of running engine to wear the prescribed seatbelts. Any passenger who refuses to wear a seatbelt shall not be allowed to continue his or her trip. Second, infants and or children aged 6 years old and below shall be prohibited to sit in the front seat of any running motor vehicle. Third, it shall be unlawful for any persons to import or cause the importations of any vehicle without appropriate and operational seatbelt devices. Last is for new vehicles, compliance is required for registration. Next is law on transportations of animals. By virtue of Republic Act 8485, also known as the Animal Welfare Act of 1998, it shall be the duty of any operator of any land, air or water, public utility transporting pets, wildlife, and all other animals to provide in all cases adequate, clean and sanitary facilities for the safe conveyance and delivery thereof to their consigned and the place of confinement. These animals shall be provided sufficient food and water while in the transit for more than 12 hours or whenever necessary. No public utility shall transport any such animal without a written permit from the director of the Bureau of Animal Industry or his or her authorized representative. Any form of cruelty shall be penalized even if the transport has obtained a permit from the Bureau of Animal Industry. Cruelty in the transporting includes overcrowding, placing animals in the trunks or under the food trunks of the vehicles. This law strictly penalizes any form of cruelty, even if the transporter has obtained the necessary permits. Acts of cruelty include overcrowding animals, placing them in trunks or under food compartments, which can cause extreme discomfort or injury. This law aims to uphold animal welfare, ensuring their safe and human treatment throughout their transportation. The Bureau of Quarantine has required the following documents certified by a licensed veterinary doctor or veterinary clinic or hospital to be presented before a shipping permit will be issued. First, certificate of rabies vaccination for not less than 30 days in case of international carriage, a certificate of 5-in-1 vaccination of parvo influenza, lepto, deworming, distemper, and hepatitis may also be required. Second, for agricultural animals, a certificate of clearance from the Cogen test and FMD or food and mouth disease test is required. On the other hand, a person planning to bring any animal into the Philippines from abroad must apply in writing for an import permit in the following address. A valid health and rabies certificate must be obtained from the agency concerned at the port of origin shortly before shipment. The certificate will be required by the veterinary quarantine officer upon arrival at the port of disembarkation. Any pet without such a certificate will be detained by the Bureau of Animal Industry or BAI until cleared. For countries declared to be rabies-free, the rabies vaccination is waived. The appropriate authorities in the country of the origin can provide this information. For pet fishes, in lieu of a health certificate, a prior import permit must be obtained from the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources or BFAR. So, these regulations ensure that animals are transported safely and help prevent the spread of diseases across borders. Next is law on importations of vehicles. In Republic Act of 7227, allows the free flow of goods and capital within the Subic Bay Free Port in Subic, province of Zambales, in order to attract investors to invest their capital in businesses. Climate with the least government intervention. In Republic Act of 727, also known as the Basis Conservation and Development Act of 1992, facilitates the free flow of goods and capital within the Subic Bay Freeport Zone in Zambales to promote economic growth and attract investors. So this law aims to transform former military bases into productive economic centers by creating a business-friendly environment with minimal government intervention. In the Subic Bay Freeport, businesses can enjoy duty-free importations of goods, including vehicles, which encourages trades and investment. By reducing regulatory barriers and offering incentives, the law helps stimulate local industries, generate employment, and boost the country's economic. These provisions has made Subic Bay Freeport a major hub of vehicles, importations, and other commercial activities, attracting both local and foreign investors. President Arroyo's Executive Order 156 prohibits the importations and used motor vehicles into the country except on territories that are declared Freeport Zone, such as the Subic Bay Freeport in Subic Province of Zambales, by virtue of Republic Act No. 7227. If the vehicles is owned by a returning resident or immigrant and covered by the authority to import issued under the no dollar importations program. If the vehicle is for the use of an officials of the diplomatic corps and authorized to be imported by the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA, and if the vehicle falls under the category of special purpose vehicles such as ambulances, fire trucks, reefers, tanker trucks, and crane lorries. And Executive Order 156 issued during the administrations of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo prohibits the importations of used motor vehicles into the Philippines with specific exceptions. The order aims to protect the local automotive industry and regulate the entry of second-hand vehicles. However, there are 4 key exceptions to this result. First, used vehicles may be imported into areas designated as free port zones such as the Subic Bay Freeport in Zambales, as authorized under Republic Act No. 7227. Second, returning residents or immigrants may import used vehicles under the No Dollar Importations Program provided they have received authorization from the appropriate government agency. Third, vehicles intended for the personal use of diplomatic officials with authorizations from the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA are exempt from the ban. Lastly, the importations of special purpose vehicles including ambulances, fire trucks, refrigerated trucks or reefers, tanker trucks, and crane lorries are permitted due to their essential and public service functions. These exceptions ensure that necessary and specialized vehicles can enter the country while maintaining control over the influx of used motor vehicles. Law on importations of vehicles. Under the Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999, any imported new locally assembled new motor vehicle shall not be registered at the LTO unless it complies with the emission standard set of evidenced by the Certificate of Conformity by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Under Republic Act No. 8750, or known as the Seatbelts Use Act of 1999, it shall be unlawful for any persons to import or cause the importations of any vehicles without appropriate and operational seatbelt devices. Next is Public Service Law. The law. Public service includes every person who may own, operate, manage, or control in the Philippines for hire of or compensations with general or limited clientele, whether permanent, occasional, or accidental, and done for general business purposes. Any common carrier, railroad or street railway, traction railway, subway motor vehicles, steamboat or steamship line, ferries and watercraft shipyard. Public Service Law. Discussion of the law. Public utilities are privately owned and operated businesses whose service is essential for the general public. They are enterprises which especially cater to the needs of the public and conduce to their comfort or convenience. As such, public utility services are impressed with public interest and concern. The same is true with respect to the business of common carrier, which holds such peculiar relations to the public interest that there is superintendence upon the right of public regulations when private properties are affected with public interest. As mandated by law, no public service shall operate without having been issued a certificate of public convenience, or which is considered a privilege and not a property right. A certificate of public convenience is an authorization granted by the proper government agency to the operations of public service for which a franchise is required by law of public use as required by law. Of public convenience. First, Civil Aeronautics Board or CAB, or Republic Act 776 for air transportation. The Civil Aeronautics Board or CAB, or Air Transportation's Republic Act 776. This Civil Aeronautic Board or CAB regulates the country's air transportation services, ensuring safe, efficient, and reliable of travel for passengers and cargo. Established under Republic Act 776, the CAB is responsible for granting permits and franchises to domestic and international airlines, regulating airfares and promoting fair competitions within airline industry. The agency also oversees in the rights and responsibilities of passengers and airlines to maintain order and safety in the aviation sector. Second is the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, Executive Order 202 for land transportation. So, the LTFRB oversees public and land transportation services including jeepneys,
buses, taxis, and transport network vehicle services or TNVS, such as ride-hailing apps, created under Executive Order 202. LTFRB is responsible for issuing franchises, regulatory fare rates, and ensuring compliance with safety standards for land-based public transportation. The agency also resolves compliance and disputes between operators and passengers, promoting safe, affordable, and accessible land transport services. And last is Maritime Industry Authority or Marina, Presidential Decree Number 474 for water transportation. So the Maritime Industry Authority or Marina manages and regulates water transportation services such as ferries, cargo ships, and passenger vessels. Established through Presidential Decree Number 474, Marina is responsible for licensing and accrediting vessels, ensuring compliance with maritime safety standards, and developing the Philippine shipping industry. The agency also enforces law to protect the marine environment and promote the welfare of seafarers. On registrations of motor vehicles. First, no motor vehicle shall be used or operated on or upon any public highway of the Philippines unless the same is properly registered at the LTO. Second, tourists bringing their own motor vehicles to the Philippines may, without registering such motor vehicles, use the same during but not after 90 days of their sojourn, provided that the motor vehicles displays the number plates for the current year and some other country or state, and said number plates, as well as the name and address or permanent and temporary of the owner thereof, are registered in the Land Transportations Commission prior to the operations of the motor vehicle. Third, for public utility automobiles, applications for registration shall be accompanied by a certificate of public convenience, and motor vehicles registered shall be subject to the public service law, rules, and regulations. No person shall operate any motor vehicle without first procuring a license to drive a motor vehicle for the current year, nor while such license is delinquent, invalid, suspended, revoked. The license shall be carried by the driver at all times when operating motor vehicle, and shall be shown and or surrendered for cost and upon demand to any person with authority under this Act to confiscate the same, and examinations or demonstrations to show any applicant's ability to operate motor vehicles may also be required. Fifth, no person operating any vehicle shall allow more passengers or more freight or cargo in his vehicle than is registered carrying capacity. No driver shall permit any person to ride on running board, stepboard, and mudguard for his motor vehicles or any purpose. 6. Every vehicle must be provided with sufficient car accessories such as tires, brakes, horns, headlights, tail lights, stoplights, windshield wipers, mufflers, and lights when disabled for the security and safety of the motor vehicle. Under letter of instruction dated December 2, 1974, every motor vehicle must have at all times at least one pair of early warning device consisting of triangular, collapsible, reflectorized plates in red or yellow colors, and at least 15 kilometers at base and 40 kilometers at the sides. Next is restrictions as to speed. Any person driving a motor vehicle on a highway shall drive the same at a careful and prudent speed, no greater or less than is reasonable and proper, having due regard for the traffic, the width of the highway, and any other conditions than their existing, and no person shall drive any motor vehicle upon a highway at such a speed to endanger the life, limb, and property of any person, nor at a speed greater than would permit him to bring the vehicle to a stop within the assured clear distance ahead. To the provisions of the preceding paragraph, the rate of speed of any motor vehicle shall not exceed the following: maximum of allowable speed, passengers, cars of motorcycles, and motor trucks and buses. First, on open country roads with no big corners, not closely bordered by habitations. Passenger cars and motorcycles 80 km per hour and 50 km per hour. On through streets or boulevards clear of traffic with no blind corners with so designated. And passenger cars and motor vehicles, it should be 40 km per hour. For motor trucks and buses, it should be 30 km per hour. Third, on city and municipal streets with light traffic when no designated through streets. For the passenger cars and motorcycles, it should be 30 km per hour. And for the motor trucks and buses, it should be 30 km per hour. Fourth, through crowded streets, approaching intersections of blind corners, passing school zones, passing other vehicles which are stationary or for similar dangerous circumstances. For passenger cars and motorcycles, it should be 20 km per hour. And for the motor trucks and buses, it should be also 20 km per hour. Next is right of way. When two vehicles approach or enter intersections at approximately the same time, the driver of the vehicle on the left shall be yield the right of way to the vehicle on the right. Second, the driver of any vehicles upon a highway within a business or residential district shall yield the right of way of the pedestrian crossing such highway within a crosswalk, except at intersections where the movement of traffic is being regulated by a peace officer or a traffic signal. Every pedestrian crossing a highway within a business or residential district at any point other than a crosswalk shall yield the right of way to vehicles upon the highway. The driver of the vehicles upon a highway shall bring to a full stop such vehicle before traversing any through highway or railroad crossing, provided that when it's apparent that no hazard exists, the vehicle may be slowed down to 5 miles per hour instead of bringing it to a full stop. Next is parking prohibition. No driver shall park a vehicle or permit it to stand whether attended or unattended upon a highway in any of the following places. First is within an intersection. Parking inside intersection is prohibited as it blocks the flow of traffic and increases the risk of collisions. Second, on a walk. Parking on crosswalk is illegal because it endangers pedestrians by obstructing safe passage across the road. Third, within 6 meters of the intersections of curb lines. Parking near intersections reduces visibility for drivers and pedestrians, increasing the chance of accidents. A 6-meter clearance ensures clear sight lines. Fourth, within 4 meters of the driver entrance to a fire station. These restrictions ensures that fire trucks can quickly exit the stations during emergencies without obstructions. Fifth, within 4 meters of a fire hydrant. Parking near fire hydrants is prohibited to allow firefighters quick and easy access to water sources during fires. 6. In front of a private driveway. Blocking a private driver prevents homeowners or businesses from entering or exiting their property. 7. On the roadway side of any vehicle stop or park at the curb or double parking. Double parking disputes traffic flow, creates congestions, and increases the risk of side collisions. And last, at any place where official signs have been erected prohibiting parking. Parking is prohibited where official signs indicate restrictions such as no parking zones, loading zones, or areas reserved for specific purposes. So these rules are enforced to maintain road safety, traffic efficiency, and access for emergency services, ensuring a safe environment for both drivers and pedestrians. Next is driving on or parking on sidewalk. No person shall drive or park a motor vehicle upon or along any sidewalk, path, or alley not intended for vehicular traffic or parking. This law prohibits driving or parking a vehicle on sidewalk paths or alleys that are not intended for vehicular use. Sidewalks are designated specifically for pedestrians, and parking or driving on them poses a danger to people walking on, obstructs their safe passage. It also damages the infrastructure meant for non-motorized traffic. Next is driving and substance intake. No person shall drive a motor vehicle while under the influence of liquor or narcotic drug. So these regulations ensures that drivers are not under the influence of alcohol or narcotic drugs while operating a vehicle. Driving under the influence of impairs judgment, reaction time, and coordinations greatly increase the risk of accidents. This law helps promote road safety, preventing drivers from engaging in dangerous behavior that put themselves, passengers, and other road users at risk. Third is obstructions of traffic. No person shall drive his motor vehicle in such a manner as to obstruct or impede the passage of any vehicle, nor while discharging or taking on passengers or loading for unloading freight, obstruct the free passage of other vehicles on the highway. This law prevents driver from obstructing or impeding traffic by driving in a way that blocks or slows down other vehicles. It also applies to situations where a vehicle while loading or unloading. Next is duty for driver during an accident. No driver for a motor vehicle concerned in a vehicular accident shall leave the scene of the accident without aiding the victim, except under any of the following circumstances. First, if he is in imminent danger of being seriously harmed by any person or person by reason for the accident. Second, if he reports the accident to the nearest officer of the law. And third, if he has to summon a physician or nurse to aid the victim. Law regulating tricycles, pedicabs, kalasas, and other related provisions under the Local Government Code of 1991. In case of regulating tricycles, pedicabs, and kalasa, the local government unit concerned through the city of municipality has the power to regulate the same by virtue of the Local Government Code. Regulations of tricycles by the city or municipality shall be subject to the guidelines prescribed by the Department of Transportations and Communications. Limited Access Highway Act RA 2000 on June 22, 1957, as amended by Executive Order 546. Under said law, the Department of Transportations and Communications is authorized and design any limited access facility and to regulate, restrict, or prohibited access as to best serve the traffic for which such facility is intended. On 19 February 1968, Secretary Antonio V. Raquesa of the Department of Public Works and Communications issued Administrative Order or AO Number 1, which prohibited motorcycles, pedicabs, tricycles, and bicycles on limited access highways. The permanent provisions of AO1 read, subject revised rules and regulations governing limited access highways. By virtue of the authority granted for the Secretary of Public Works and Communications under Section 3 of RA 2000, otherwise known as the Limited Access Highway Act, the following rules and regulations governing limited access highways are hereby promulgated for the guidance of all concerned. Section 3. On limited access highways, it is unlawful for any persons of group of persons to drive any bicycle, tricycle, pedicab, motorcycle, or any vehicle or not motorized. Citation of Kalesa drivers. A resident Filipino citizen who is at least 18 years old of age, physically, mentally fit, and of good moral character may apply for accreditations of Kalesa driver. The applications of accreditation shall be accompanied by the following documents. First, appropriate mayor's permit and or municipal license. Second, proof that the driver has passed a seminar for Kalesa driver conducted by the department of any organization duly authorized by the department. Third, police clearance and or barangay clearance. Fourth, certificate of good health issued by a duly licensed physician and veterinarian for the Kalesa driver and horse, respectively. And fifth, other documents that the department may require from time to time. For purposes of accreditations, the following are the minimum requirements of the operations and maintenance of a Kalesa. First is a physician appearance of the carriage. The carriage shall be made of good quality materials and shall be of excellent workmanship. It shall be neatly painted with a color or numeral markings duly prescribed or assigned by the department. It shall have a non-skid stepping board. It shall be clean, well-maintained, and provided with comfortable seats. Horse. The horse shall be in a good physical conditions. Roadworthiness. The Kalesa shall be fit for operations on all public thoroughfares. Seating capacity. The Kalesa shall have a maximum load of 2 passengers. First aid kit. The Kalesa shall have a first aid kit. Horse waste receptacle. Every Kalesa shall have a horse waste receptacle or the rear end of the horse below the tail. Kalesa drivers. The drivers shall be trained, well-groomed, courteous, and shall wear the prescribed uniform and DOT ID at all times during actual operating hours and shall provide service at this safe, comfortable, and convenient as possible. Moreover, they shall look after the welfare of their respective horses. Routes. The Kalesa shall serve routes which are concerned tourist zone or belt areas and shall not disrupt the normal flow of traffic. The service shall be limited to the boundary of the city or municipality issuing the pertinent mayor's permit or municipal license. Fares. The Kalesa driver shall charge only such fares for his services as may be approved or fixed by any competent government agency.
And that's it for my report in Chapter 7. Thank you.